Okay. Hello, everyone. We are live now. All right. I'll start introducing us in Japanese first. Hopefully, everyone sees us. はい。はい。では、こちらで配信をスタートします。皆さん、こんにちは。こんばんは。映像とか音声は聞こえますか？大丈夫ですかね？はい。では、ぜひ何か、見えてますとか何かチャットでコメントしてください。はい。それでは、本日、31回英語シンポジウムの、英文学の方、英文学の世界を、それについてのシンポジウムを開始したいと思います。で、本日の担当は、リナと申します。今日もよろしくお願いします。はい。ではですね、こちらに今映っていらっしゃる3人の方と、始めたいと思いまして、まずは、ティーチャーハネ先生と、ニコラス先生と、ジェシカ先生、3人と一緒に、英語を日本読みながら、本について紹介しながら、英語を勉強しましょうって感じになります。では、まずは、ティーチャーハネ先生から、ダールと大きな夢を見ようっていう本を紹介してくださいます。そして次に、ニコラス先生から、Wheel of Time を紹介してもらいます。そして最後に、ジェシカ・オー先生から、文化と、文学の交わり、交わりについて。こちらは、チマチンダ・アディーチの、パープル・ハイビスカスを通してっていう本についてを紹介してくれます。で、最後に皆さんもシンポジアムページの方でご確認されたかと思いますが、キャンペーンページでは、書かれている通り、配信中にコメントをしてくださった方に、その中で3名様を、抽選で、こちらの参加する先生の方々のレッスンを無料で受講できるクーポンをお配りしますので、ぜひたくさんコメントとか質問とか書いていただければ幸いです。コメントについては、英語と日本語両方どちらでも大丈夫ですので、いっぱいコメントしてください。はい。では、英語に切り替えます。Hello again, everyone. This is Lina from Cafetalk. I hope you can see us well. I will first start by introducing the seminar today. The symposium is going to be based on all what you have seen over the website here. So I am joined by teacher Hanne, Nicholas, and Jessica today, who will tell us about their favorite books, of course, in English. The presentation is going to be all in English. And we will start with teacher Hanne, who will speak about the book Dare to Dream with Dahi. Then we have Nicholas, who will continue presenting another interesting book called The Wheel of Time. And following that, we will have Jessica, who will talk about the intersection of culture and literature using Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie. So you might have already heard of them, so I hope it's going to be interesting for you too. And lastly, as you already saw over the campaign page, you might see that there we would also choose 3 lucky students. If you comment or ask questions over this live streaming, you might receive a free lesson ticket that allows you to take lessons with one of these tutors that are participating today. So please don't forget to comment. You can comment in English or in Japanese. Either way is fine. All right. So without further ado, I would say to get started. And as I told you here, we will start with teacher Hanne. If you're ready, we will change it to your presentation and just go ahead.
Thank you, Lina. Good evening, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining for the symposium today. I'm going to talk about the author Roald Dahl, and my presentation is Dare to Dream with Dahl. He has wrote many books. You can see I'm a huge fan of him. I have a lot of books. And maybe you've heard of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or James and the Giant Peach. Those are all books by Roald Dahl. So let's talk about him and his books. First, I'm just going to start off by saying something about the powerful tool reading. We all know how important reading is. But reading is really one of the secrets to fluent English. It's a powerful tool because we enjoy, while we're reading, we're enjoying it and we're learning. So reading is something of a secret and a powerful tool. And it's also something we can do while we have limited time. So even if you have little time, you can still learn English and enjoy. So I think it's really a wonderful thing. And what's also important is it's for children and adults. So let's enjoy it together. One last thing I just want to add is why reading helps to improve your English skills. Reading and writing are connected. And that is why reading actually helps to improve your writing. We learn a lot of variety of vocabulary in a natural context when we read. So it's really very, very important to read as much as you can. It gives you confidence. It helps to increase your motivation. So no excuse. We should be all reading English books. And some tips from my side before I go on to my books that I recommend is always try to read on a daily basis as much as you can, even if it's small, a mere amount of time, but as often as possible is really important. And enjoy it. Enjoy it with a cup of tea, enjoy it with a friend, with a teacher. That's the main thing. If you enjoy it, you are actually learning so much more. And also, I find taking a book everywhere I go. That's my main tip for reading as much as I can. So let's get to our author, Roald Dahl. He was actually born in Wales, but he had Norwegian parents. So that's why his name is pronounced as Roald Dahl. And yes, he was very, very famous for his children and adult books. So he was a famous British author, but he had Norwegian parents. What I find interesting about him is that he had a rose named after him that I find quite amazing. As many authors, he had his routine, his schedule. He wrote his books in a little shed in his garden. How amazing! That sounds so good. And he never typed his manuscripts. He always handwritten all his manuscripts, and he wrote for 4 hours every day. Very strict writing routine. What is amazing about Roald Dahl is that he invented English words to make his books exciting and interesting to his readers. And there's actually a Oxford dictionary that only has special words invented by this author. So that is really special, I think. So maybe you ask, why are Roald Dahl's books so popular? Well, I think the first thing is the characters in the books are very relatable. They are from simple backgrounds. Most of his characters were based on real persons in Roald Dahl's lives. So maybe teachers, friends, but they were still imaginative, but they were based on real persons. And you will find a lot of humor and action, even sarcasm in his books. So many emotions you can enjoy while reading his books. As I mentioned, the new words, interesting new words we find in these books. And what I enjoy about them is they transport you to a magical world. Dahl himself said, adults are so serious. We need more fun and magic in our lives. And this is what these books bring us. They bring us magic, they bring us interesting, fun adventures. And what's also good is that each book has a main life lesson for children and for adults. And I think that's quite important. Oh, and maybe you've heard about the movies Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda. Those are well-known movies that were based on his books. So they bring the stories to life. Last slide before we look at the books themselves, but why should we read Roald Dahl's books? Well, if we look at the numbers, more than 300 million copies of his books were sold worldwide. So that speaks for itself. It's very, very popular. Adults and children can enjoy the books. That is why I think it's also so popular. And it gives you just confidence and motivation to read more once you started his books. You want to read more and find out what happens in his other books. So the world of feelings and emotions, you all experience them while reading his books. And it takes you on exciting journeys. And I think that's what books are all about, to take us on journeys outside our ordinary lives. I've mentioned the interesting words before, new vocabulary in these books, so that's very useful. I say it's never too late to read a book by Roald Dahl. So if you have never read one of his books, this is definitely then I recommend. If you don't like fiction books, then Roald Dahl also has an autobiography about his childhood. The book's name is Boy. And then there's also autobiography about his adult life, going solo. So if you enjoy autobiographies, that can also be an option for you. So, as I mentioned, very unique words in these books. I just have few examples to make you excited about these words. They are described as playful and inventive. So you are never bored when reading these books by Roald Dahl. As I said, there's a special dictionary even with all Roald Dahl's unique words that he invented. He actually used linguistic method, so specific method to invent these words. Example would be he played with sound. So he uses the word sizzle pan instead of frying pan. So it describes exactly what happens in the pan. It sizzles. He also uses something called spoonerism. That's when the sounds are swapped. So example would be Dahl's chickens instead of Charles Dickens. So that's a way he played with words in his books. Other way he uses playful language is malapropisms, special word to just say it's actually an error, but he makes it humorous. He makes a joke out of it. So in his books, you will read about a belly popper instead of helicopter. So you can hear very playful language. And a useful word that Dahl uses in his books is almost like splendid, but it's splendiferous, and it means excellent. It's an adjective. So we can say, what a splendiferous English symposium it was. What an excellent symposium. A very useful word. Now we get to the books themselves. The first one I recommend and that I really like is James and the Giant Peach. It's Dahl's first children book, but you can enjoy it as an adult as well. It's absolutely fine. I enjoy reading James and the Giant Peach myself. And most of his books have a child hero. And it's the case in this book as well. James is a boy who lost his parents in a tragic accident. And he lives now with his aunts, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker. And they're very mean and very unkind people. And his life is really horrible, and he doesn't have anything to look forward to in his life. But then something very unexpected happens, and it happens right there in the garden. And there's a peach tree, but I don't want to give the story away. So James goes on a magical journey with lots of adventure, something he would never have dreamed even before about doing something like that. So if you like books with themes like friendship and teamwork, adventure, and a good ending, joyful ending, then this is the book for you, James and the Giant Peach. And I also thought maybe I can just read a paragraph from this book to give you a little bit of an insight, and you can hear the beautiful language. James crawled on for several more yards, and then suddenly, bang! The top of his head bumped into something extremely hard, blocking his way. He touched it with his fingers. It certainly felt like wood, except that it was very jagged and full of deep grooves. Good heavens, he said. I know what this is. I've come to the stone in the middle of the peach. Then he noticed that there was a small door in the face of the peach stone. He gave it a push. It swung open, and before he had time to glance up and see where he was, he heard a voice saying, "Look, who's here? We've been waiting for you." So that just gives you an idea of James and the Giant Peach. Then the other very popular book by Dahl is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Maybe you've heard about the movie, very famous and popular. Well, this is maybe one of Dahl's most popular books. Once again, there is a child hero, and in this case, it's a very poor boy named Charlie. And by luck, he wins or finds a golden ticket to visit the magical chocolate factory by the famous Willy Wonka. And the story explores the magic of that factory and the 5 children that are allowed to visit this factory with their parents. And you hear about the Oompa Loompas. That's a famous word there for the factory workers. And the children's misbehavior is punished in this chocolate factory. And because Charlie is such a well-behaved boy, there's a surprising end. So I won't give it away. Maybe you want to read the book. But themes of hope, kindness, family, those are all main themes in this book. So if you like those kind of themes and you like surprising ends, I would recommend Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It is suitable for adults and children, so very useful book to learn vocabulary as well. So yes, let's dare to dream with Dahl. Let's dare to dream. Dare to dream is actually one of the lessons that we learn in James and the Giant Peach. James had no hope for his life, but then he actually had the opportunity to go on an adventure he would have never had in his life. So dare to dream is definitely something we learn from James in that book. We read from the viewpoint of child heroes, and I think that's also important sometimes to read from a different perspective, like a child hero. And in these books, both Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach, and some of other books by Dahl, it always is possible to overcome difficult situations in life. And I think that can be an important lesson, and it's good to read about that and experience it in a story. So, as I mentioned before, students of all ages can enjoy these books. You can experience emotions, feelings, and you go on adventures. So, my recommendation, start reading, go on a reading adventure while learning English and enjoying at the same time. So, maybe you want to take my lesson, some other recommended books on the slide as well, but they're not by Dahl. Maybe I'll see you in a future lesson and then we can read together. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Hanne, for your presentation. I didn't get to read all the books you presented today, so it's really interesting to know how many topics, and it's really interesting to like see all this. Yeah, and
Thank you, Lina.
I think many of the ones who are commenting right now, many of students have already seen maybe the movie for the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So let's
That's good to
see.
know.
Let me check a few comments first. So while you were presenting, we just had a small comment about someone is listening from Melbourne, it seems. Oh, thank you very much, Yoko-san. And Yuko Ku, student Yuko, said that I love the story of elevators one. I'm not sure.
Yes, that's also a famous book by Roald Dahl. Yes.
And the same student just said that I'd love to read this book with you, the book that you just introduced us. And thank you for introducing us, Hanne.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Really nice. If of course, if Nicholas and Jessica has any comments about it, or if you know the books that Hanne just presented, like please feel free to share some comments.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with James and the Giant Peaches. That's a book that I had, and I've read that a couple times along with seeing the movie. I haven't read all of Dahl's books, but that was definitely one that was a childhood favorite of mine. So it's a roller coaster. It's a really very, very unique book for sure, without any spoilers.
Oh, thanks. I'm happy to hear that, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nicholas. Oh, in the meantime, someone said, Hiyama 2 student said that I have read the book Matilda. Have you known?
Yes, wonderful book. Also, like Nicholas said, roller coaster.
Roller coaster.
Interesting.
I see. All right then. Also, lastly, let's see one more. Oh yes, another student just said that that was so interesting. I guess the presentation was so interesting. Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments, and thank you again, Hanne, for presenting. I guess we
It's
should
a
just move
pleasure.
on to the next one. Then.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. And we'll get started here. Okay. So, today I'd like to share with everyone one of my favorite fantasy novels of my whole life. It's a fantasy series called The Wheel of Time. So, thank you so much for joining me. First of all, it's great to be able to share one of my favorite stories, and also as a way to encourage everyone to expand your English and your vocabulary in a very more of an advanced way, but specifically with the first book. And that'll be the first book, Eye of the World. And with this book, we can really expand on exploring advanced English through this book and through the author Robert Jordan and his grand giant story into the realm of fantasy and magic and the classic struggle between good and evil. All right, so let's get started. So how can we really expand on our English with these with these kind of stories in an advanced way? Well, let's first think of landscape descriptions. We look at this picture, one of the covers of one of the books, and we can see, yes, this grassy field with many of the heroes riding through the countryside and a castle, a fortress behind them. Let's look at a quote and we'll see how we can really we can expand our English with some advanced vocabulary. So let me read this one quote here. The crumbling walls of the abandoned fortress rose high above them. Turrets jutted out against the sky like silent sentinels, while ivy crept up weathered stones, reclaiming them for nature. So a lot of really advanced descriptions that we use here. Now, what does all of this mean, though? Crumbling, many people would likely know, but this would be breaking, falling apart into smaller pieces. So the walls are breaking away. And we can think about not only the walls, but the whole fortress is abandoned, meaning having been left behind. So the people that live there, they left somewhere and left the fortress empty. So we know that it's empty, it's crumbling. And turrets, what are these turrets? So we can see them one area here and here. Those would be the small towers on top of a larger tower or the corner of a building or even on the corner of a wall. So these would be ways that we can describe parts of castles and buildings like that. And then sentinels, those would be soldier or guard whose job it is to stand and keep watch. So we can see that the turrets, they stood out against the sky like silent sentinels, like a guard that's watching over the castle silently. So more of a metaphor. And let's go over some of the other words there too. We can also talk about weathered. So having been worn by long exposure to weather. So the stones are weathered. They've changed shape after perhaps many storms. Again, a very detailed description. And that last word, jutted out, that would simply mean to extend out. So the turrets extended out against the sky. So within just that one paragraph, we have so many detailed and advanced descriptions of one landscape, one castle fortress, and it really gives us a full picture and description in a very colorful way. But let's think about not only describing landscapes, let's move on to characters as well. So let's first look at the main character of the story. This would be the person in this picture here. So again, another quote from the first book, The Eye of the World. So Grand Althor stood a head taller than the rest, with shockingly red hair and a thoughtful expression in his blue eyes. His hands were calloused from years of work in the fields, but there was strength in them that belied his youth. So again, a few other great descriptions and just one paragraph that describes one character in a very colorful way. So first, shockingly, in a way that shocks. That can be in a good or bad way. It can be a very negative word. In this way, it's more just a way to say extremely. So it's his hair, his red hair, shockingly red hair. That shows that perhaps it's much redder than anyone has perhaps seen in this world. So it's extremely red, it's shocking, it's a way to say extremely red. And calloused. So that would be the hardened skin, hard work, or long use. In this case, they talked about his hands were calloused, perhaps the hardened skin on his hands after working in the fields, as his character grew up on a farm. So in that last word, belied, to fail to give a true impression or image of something. So in this case, we're talking about how the calloused skin, how his strength in his hands that belied his youth, the strength that he has from working in fields, it didn't show his true youth because of his years working in the field. So again, all of these descriptions are great ways for us to describe a character in a very detailed way in just one paragraph. All right. Now, what else can we also focus on as we're diving into these very advanced kinds of novels? So we can focus on story building. And let's just go over another way that they build the story and set the stage for this great and massive story that goes over many novels. So, prophecies whispered of a chosen one, fated to confront the Dark One and bring balance to the world. But the path to victory was fraught with peril, and the stakes could not be higher. So we won't go over all the words here this time, but what story building techniques can we learn from this quote? Because just in one quote, we're getting a lot of information. Well, first of all, we have the exploration of themes. The theme here, like I mentioned before, there's good versus evil. We have the Dark One, this great evil being, this thing in shadow, and they talk about the chosen one, some fated hero that we don't know yet, and it's that classic story of good and evil. But, of course, it's that exploring from it, not only of good and evil, but expanding on it. And, of course, we're building suspense and tension because we know that there is this Dark One that wants to destroy the world, and we know that the path to victory was fraught with peril, peril being danger. There's lots of danger on this path. And, of course, we are developing the plot because now that we have this idea that there will be a chosen one, this builds the plot, this builds the story with the idea in this way. All right, well, let's continue on from story building. Now, let's conclude a little bit just with this idea of how we are reflecting on the journey just over a few paragraphs, because in those paragraphs, am I still sharing the page? One second. I think I've stopped sharing the page. Let's go back. 1 second, please. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So, continuing from there. Okay, thanks. So, yeah, let's just go over one quote that really, if anyone has read any of these novels, then we anyone who's read these novels will know this quote just because it's in every novel, and it really builds this grand idea of this whole world. So the wheel of time turns, ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legends fade to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. So that's a very fascinating quote just by itself, but really, what can we hope to achieve through reading Eye of the World and these other advanced novels that are out there? Well, first of all, we are expanding our vocabulary. In the beginning, we talked about how we can pick out all of these advanced vocabulary just from one paragraph. So breaking down those paragraphs and studying these advanced vocabulary will really help you improve and push your English to new levels. And with this, we can empower your writing abilities. Perhaps you want to be writing your own story, or you're using these to write in different ways. There's many different ways we can use these advanced vocabularies to improve your own writing abilities. And of course, we are enhancing your storytelling skills, not only writing with new phrases, new vocabulary, and metaphors, but also now we're using different ways that we can paint a picture and describe a landscape just with words. We can create a whole universe just with our own advanced descriptions. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for hearing my description and listening to me describe one of my favorite book series of all time. So, of course, let's keep pushing the boundaries of your English skills with these books or perhaps other advanced novels. And I hope to see you in a lesson sometime soon. All right. Thank you so much. Let me just stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for your presentation.
Thanks so
It's
much.
really nice. Let me check if we have some comments. We might have a few second lag here, but hopefully, let's see. Well, oh yes, we had one student before our presentation who just said hi. Hi, Nick.
Oh, hi.
Let's see. I can just say by my comment if it's fine. I think you had on the second slide about his skin being kind of hardened. There was a word I never used that word
Callous.
yet.
Yeah.
Yes. That's really interesting to know. I think if you get to read such a book and learn all those like words, it would be really nice for your vocabulary.
Absolutely. I find that these kind of novels, they don't only just want you to meet the characters, they really want to, as I said, paint a picture just with the vocabulary. So even just with one sentence, they can get a history of one person. It's really fascinating.
And I think you actually first read the book because it's interesting, and then you just realize that you know new words. You find yourself searching them, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lina.
Also, Notion, the student called Notion here says thank you.
Oh, thank you, Notion.
Thank you. Okay. Waiting for more comments, hopefully.
Yep.
Did you have you read this before, Hanne? The book we just heard?
No, I haven't. I'm inspired by Nicholas's presentation. I definitely want. I want to read it now.
Yeah, it's
So thank you, Nicholas, for introducing me to this book.
no problem. I hope you enjoyed it. It's definitely a very fascinating but a long read. I will warn you, it is a long read.
Even that's the important thing about being tutors, learning as well as we go along. That is actually very
Totally
important.
agree.
Yeah, you're right.
So thank you.
Oh, here we had another comment. There's a question for Unique. Is the book very similar to the TV show?
I would say yes. Oh, we're getting an earthquake.
Oh, we're having a short earthquake.
Oh, yep, a little bit of an earthquake. Oh,
So
that's exciting.
yeah,
I think
it's a small happening. Yes, me and Nicholas right now are in Japan. We're just having a short earthquake, but I think it's gonna be fine.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, it should be okay.
Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
going back
Sorry,
to the question.
what was your question again?
We have here from Barbara. Is the book very similar to the TV show?
Yeah, I did watch a lot of the TV show. I do think that it is very similar, but the thing about watching shows is that I have my own mental image of characters, and then I see the show's mental image, or the show's characters acting as it, and it's a little bit different than my own idea of how I viewed the characters. So it is very similar. Absolutely, there is those monsters and characters and magic that's in the show, but I would say the order in which the story is told is slightly different. Very similar.
I see. Thank you very much for explaining. Yes.
Nice.
Okay, going on. We have another comment from Yuko. I'm really impressed by your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yuko.
And then Kiyomi. Student Kiyomi said, it's a short question. How many books does The Wheel of Time have?
So this is the tough part. 15.
Oh, 15.
Yes. So that's where it can be a little bit challenging. It can be, well, not a little bit, it can be very challenging, but that's where, it is something that it might be something where you just go into one book and that could be enough for you, because the Eye of the World, that one book, it does have quite a bit of a conclusion at the end before continuing. You could stop there, but there is much more to it.
I see. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, do we have something else? Okay, there's a short comment from Kibira-san. It was very fascinating. I appreciate that you bring the possibility of story building. I am very interested, and thank you. Thank you
so
for coming.
Yeah, thank you for the comments.
Okay, one last question. Let's see, from Akiko. Where is the story held?
In a completely different world. Think about how Lord of the Rings is in Middle Earth. I forget the name of the world now that you mention it. Oh my goodness. I can't remember them. I know the name of the towns. Like there's the Twin Rivers, but the world itself, I don't recall the exact name of the world. I'm gonna have to check later. I'm sorry.
That's a good question for who's interested to read the book and find out.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Someone just said that the title, The Wheel of Time, attracts a lot. It seems attractive to me. Yeah, attracts me a lot.
Absolutely.
Indeed, yeah. The Wheel of Time, it's quite a nice title.
It's very fascinating.
Okay, so the story, this is connected to the comment from Akiko, who just asked where the story is held.
Okay.
The student just commented like, okay, it's not in a real world. So yes, I guess, yeah, it's a...
Yes, exactly. So it is much more of a world of magic and monsters and things like that. So there's no real mention of our real world. So.
Nice, very interesting. It really does sound very interesting. I wish we had more time to read all the books like in one night. Impossible. All right then. So we would have liked to go to the next presentation, but sadly it seems that Jessica doesn't have quite a good connection. We lost her along the way. So we might not be able to continue with the third presentation. but we would add the documents here over the page. So maybe yes, you all the students who just got the one that you booked this streaming, you should be able to see the documents and also see the comments from our tutor after. That being said, lastly, maybe I can check if there's any other comments. And let me see. Connected to the name of the world in the book, I think, was it Randland
I
after the character?
I saw the note there, and I think
Yes.
that's more of a fan made name. It's
I see.
I've not heard of a real description of it called Randland, so I think that's more of a fan made. But yeah, just like
Seems like it.
Rand Althor, yeah, it could be.
I see. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's part of the let's say superficial and then you have space for imagination. Maybe you can name the world by yourself, connected to something.
I like it.
All right then. Okay, one last comment. Someone just said that Notion said that I was impressed by your emotional reading. Oh yes, that's right. You did have a really nice part where you read there.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that my reading was enjoyable.
All right then. Okay, I will move on and would like to make a short, maybe news, let's say a short announcement related to the presentation our tutors just have here, and also including Jessica, which prepared our presentation. We are making a small collaboration with our book club here on Cafetalk. Maybe most of the students have already seen it. If you're all interested in reading books as well and learning English. We are going to add the short presentation of the books on the same page there with the book club. We also added the banner with book club over the symposium website. So if you want to check it out, please go there. And then you would find all the 3 books presented there. And of course, maybe Nicholas and Hanne as well would like to have other lessons and maybe talk more about the books and so on. So if you have any other lessons, Nick and Hanne, if you have lessons connected to that or anything else you would like to tell the students now, please go ahead.
Sure. Hanne, did you want to go first? Or?
Oh, thanks, Nicholas. Yes, thanks, Lina, as well. My lessons are intended for children up to adults, so I invite children and adults for my lessons. And my lessons are mostly reading lessons and speaking lessons, but I also teach music. So if you are playing the violin or are you interested in music theory, those are lessons you can take as well. So I hope to see you there. And for the reading, many books, recommended books. If you have your own book that you want to read, you're welcome. I even have a Bible reading lesson. So yes, feel free to have a look at my profile, and maybe I see you in the near future in a lesson.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Hanne. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, for myself, I also have a lot of different lessons for all ages. As for English, I do have the book club lesson along with other English conversation or English lessons focusing on a variety of different English textbooks, focusing on English grammar and phrasal verbs. But I also do have other lessons related to artwork, anything from drawing and painting, any kind of artwork that you'd be interested in expanding on. But and the last bit of lessons that I also do is I also do cooking lessons as well, as I used to work in hotel restaurants.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it seems that Jessica's back with us. Can you hear us, Jessica? Maybe the connection is a bit low.
Yes,
If
yes, I
you
can hear you.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
We would have a few minutes left. If you want to have a short presentation right now, it would be at the maybe 10 minutes or so. If you're okay with that, then we can go on with your presentation as
Oh,
well.
okay. So this is my topic, and it's intersection of culture and literature. So this is like exploring the intersection of cultures in Pepo Hibiscus. So Pepo Hibiscus is one of the best book here in Nigeria, and I'll first of all like to explain what I mean by intersection of culture. So this is where culture and literature meets together. Example, we can see how these books meet together with the society. Now, for example, I'll use examples. Some of the movies we watch, and some of the movies we watch. I, on the other hand, I don't know lots about Korean movies or Korean histories and all that. But watching movies made me understand this is how they behave, this is their lives, this is about their histories and all this. So, what I'm trying to say is culture intersects with literature. So using this pepper hibiscus helps us understand what cultures means or what culture means. And also pepper hibiscus made us understand the lives of people in Nigeria and how they live during the post-colonial rule. Now the post-colonial rule is actually when or after the independence, Nigeria gained their independence in 1960. So this story is written in 1990s, which is after the independence. So this interception of culture shows us how or what happened during the life of the post-colonial Nigerian. So that is what this topic is talking about. Now the author, which is Chimamanda Adichie, the author in her book try to show us more about this interception of culture. She kind of in her book, she shows us how this culture aligns with Nigerians. And I don't know if I can show you more about show you other things. I can move my slide myself. Hold on. So this is actually the cultures. This is the author. This is the author of the book, Chimamanda Adichie. Hold on. So this is the author of the book, Chimamanda Adichie. Here she shows us interception of culture. She shows us imagine walking through a busy market in Nigeria. The air is filled with the smell of spices, and you can hear vendors calling out their wares. So this is actually how she's showing us how this culture intersects. I don't know if you can say she showed us how this culture intersects. So this is the author of the book. She goes by the name Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She grew up in Nigeria and knows a lot about its culture, which is why her stories are so special. So her stories focuses on the intersection. She shows us how the stories aligns with the culture of Nigeria and the culture of the or of what happened during the post-colonial rules. So this is it. Then this is the typical, I don't know if you can say this, this is what she's trying to show us about the culture. So one of the culture that we have here is what we call the setting of this book. So this book was set in the post-colonial Nigerian. So this is actually how it looks like during this period in Nigeria. This is the typical representation of Nigerian market. So imagine yourself walking through a busy market in Nigeria. This is what you're going to see. This is what you will see. And she made this more evident in her writing so that it can show you this is real. This is actually where she's talking about. So moving on to the second one, you can see the family. Family is one of the most important aspects in culture, and you can see how she aligned this family in her works. So this is a typical representation of Nigerian family. And family is very important in Nigeria and is evident in her novel. So she traces two families that we see here, the family of Achike's family, this family is kind of the central part of this book. So this is the typical representation of Nigerian family, and you can see that in her books. She kind of draws a real fact about how Nigerian family looks like in her books. This is the typical representation of Nigerian family. So moving on to the next one, we can see religion. So religion plays a big role in Nigerian society, and I think religion plays a very big role in all other countries, not only Nigeria, because I can see in Nigeria we have different type of religion, and this actually plays a very big role in our country because everything is focused on religion. So moving on to the next one, this is what we call the political crisis in Nigeria. So like I said, this book was written during the colonial rules. This is kind of it's after the colonial rule that this story is written. So here she's trying to show us about everything that happened in the post-colonial era, and during this post-colonial era serves as one of the tough eras in Nigeria because this is actually after the independence. Nigeria gained their independence in 1960. So here she's trying to illustrate to us what happened, or she centers her books on actually what happened during the post-colonial rule. So moving on to the third one, I'll show you the language lessons. So this is one of the cultures in Nigeria. So language is an important part of Nigerian culture. Yes, we have different languages, but yes, English is our basic language, but we have different dialects. So in made she language blending. She shows us the how people communicate, and also showed us the language. You can see language is important part of Nigerian culture. In Papa Hibiscus, we can see a mix of language from the formal English spoken in schools and churches to the colorful vernacular of the street. So moving on to the next one, I will say this is the author Chimamanda Adichie, and this is her book Purple Hibiscus. This is how the purple hibiscus looks. So in her writing and speeches, Adichie emphasized the importance of storytelling as a means of understanding and empathy. Through her characters and her experience, Adichie invites us to see the world from multiple perspectives, challenging our assumption and broadening our horizon. So Papa Hibiscus is one of the stories or one of the book that I will recommend if you want to know more about the Nigerian culture and everything that happens during the post-colonial rules. So that is all for now. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for your presentation. It's too bad
Yeah.
you had a short time. It's really interesting to see that
Mm,
comparing to the other presentation, all of them are really like different. And the book you just
mm,
presented, it's more over real life, so it's really like far away from the
mm,
fantasy story that we just had talking about.
mm,
And
mm,
yes, it's really interesting. I'm really interested in reading the book right now. I didn't hear about much about the content before.
mm.
Mm. Okay, let me see. Let's see if we have a comment at the end. Okay. Oh yes. So we have one student just said that it is interesting to know. So I wonder if it's the first time we know about the book.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Thank you very much for having this presentation done and in such a short time. Sadly, we would have to finish the streaming very soon. So I would lastly ask you, Jessica, if you can maybe say a few words about the lesson that you have for Cafe Talk, or if you have any recommendation for the students that are watching right now.
Okay. Um, what I would recommend for my student is currently now I don't have lessons because I'm kind of sick, sorry. So, but I will
Problem.
recommend when it comes to books, I have books that I will recommend when it comes to literature. I have lots of books. Example, it's this Pepper Hibiscus is a very good book. And also I have another one, Half of a Yellow Sun. So if you want to basic part of literature, I think that's the best book to read. Half of a Yellow Sun. It's very nice. And also it has simple English. It has simple English. And from it you can learn more about your vocabulary and improve more.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I believe you also have lessons too, and you can read books with students or maybe have writing lessons
Yes.
with students, right?
Mm.
That's great to know.
Yes, I have more of writing lessons. Yeah.
All right, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comment. All right, so sadly we would have to finish our streaming today, and I'm really glad that we could finish up with all this representation. Jessica could join us at the end. Thank you very much. So as I said before, if you're interested in lessons by our tutors, we have them. We have some recommended lessons on this website of the streaming. You can check them out. You can click on their names and go to their profiles, and you can also check the book club if you want. And also, this recording is going to be available for the student who booked it before. So if you want to check it again and listen to the presentation once more, please be free to do so. Thank you very much, Hanne, Nicholas, and Jessica today. Hope
Thank
to
you
see you
very
soon,
much.
Thank
maybe in
you.
a different event.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you very much. You all
Thank you
have a
so
nice
much,
day.
too. And I'm
Bye.
sorry for the lateness.
No
Bye.
problem.
Okay. Have a
Thank you
wonderful
very much, everyone.